They tell you America is in decline. Headlines scream about the collapse of the dollar, political division, and the end of the American century. We've grown used to measuring the power of nations by GDP figures, missile counts, or the charisma of political leaders. But what if I told you that all of this is just noise on the surface? There is a law that is far more important than constitutions or economic forums, a law that cannot be rewritten or repealed. It is the law of the earth. While the experts argue about the future, they are ignoring the very ground they walk on. The truth is, the United States isn't just a country, it's a geographical anomaly. It is a perfectly engineered fortress, handed the most coveted piece of land in human history. And unless the very landscape of our planet changes, the endgame is already decided. Today, we reveal why America is a geographical cheat code and why its rivals are locked in cells with no way out.
To understand why America holds the winning hand today, we have to look back at the dawn of the game. Humanity didn't just pop up everywhere at once. We began in 6 specific locations, 6 cradles of civilization: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, northern China, Mesoamerica, and the Andes. Every single one of these cultures had the same dream: to expand, to trade, and to endure. But most of them ran into what historians call a great filter. You see, most geography is a trap. Imagine building a great city, only to realize you are surrounded by hostile tribes with no natural barriers to stop them. Or finding yourself in a land where the rivers are unpredictable, either drying up and causing famine, or flooding so violently they wash away your entire legacy. This is the reality for most of the world. Most nations are born into a geographical death sentence. But then there was the Egyptian model. For 3,000 years, Egypt was the gold standard of stability. Why? Because they had the Nile. The Nile was the world's first perfect geography. It provided a predictable food supply, a silver platter of transportation, and most importantly, it was flanked by massive, inhospitable deserts. The desert was a shield. It kept the invaders out, while the river kept the wealth in. But even Egypt had a limit. It was a linear civilization, a thin green line in a sea of sand. It couldn't grow beyond its banks. Now hold that thought. Imagine if you could take the security of the Egyptian desert, the fertility of the Nile, and the transport power of the great oceans, and scale it up to the entire continent. The Great Filter has stopped almost every empire in history. It stopped the Romans, it choked the Mongols, and it haunts modern-day powers like Russia and China. But there is one place on Earth that didn't just survive the filter. It was built to bypass it entirely.
To understand the American miracle, you first have to look at the edges. Most of the world's coastlines are, let's be honest, disappointing. They are either too shallow, too rocky, or constantly battered by storms that make building a permanent port an expensive nightmare. But the east coast of North America, it's a masterpiece of geological engineering. Thousands of years ago, retreating glaciers carved out deep, natural, ice-free harbors from Maine down to Virginia. New York, Boston, Norfolk, these aren't just cities, they are the world's most efficient gateways to the ocean. While other nations had to spend centuries and billions dredging sand and building breakwaters, America was born with a dozen perfect ports ready for business. But the ports were only the front door. The real prize lay behind the mountains. In 1803, the United States was a modest coastal nation. But then, Thomas Jefferson signed a piece of paper that changed the world forever: the Louisiana Purchase. At the time, it cost $15 million. Today, adjusted for inflation and land value, that's essentially buying a winning lottery ticket for a few pennies. Some experts estimate the true economic value of that land today at over $60 trillion. But why? It's just dirt, right? Wrong. It wasn't just dirt, it was the Mississippi River Basin. Remember what I said about the Nile being a silver platter? The Mississippi system is that same platter, but on steroids. It is the largest interconnected network of navigable rivers on the planet. In any other country, if you grow wheat or corn in the middle of a continent, you have to build massive, expensive railroads to get it to a port. In America, you just put it on a barge. Gravity and the river do the rest of the work for free. This is the secret foundation of American wealth. It's a system of free highways that allows the heart of the country to trade with the entire world at a fraction of the cost of its rivals. While the rest of the world was fighting for survival, America was building the most efficient wealth-generating machine in human history, fueled by nothing but water and gravity.
To truly appreciate the American fortress, you have to look at the people trying to climb its walls. Let's start with China. On a map, China looks like a rising colossus, but look closer at its coast. China is a prisoner of its own geography. Its entire access to the Pacific Ocean is strangled by what military planners call the first island chain. From Japan and South Korea in the north, down through Taiwan and the Philippines in the south. These aren't just islands. They are a wall of US-aligned states that can turn off China's access to the world with a single command.
Even worse, 80% of China's oil passes through the Malacca Strait, a narrow bottleneck only 1.5 miles wide at its thinnest point. If a single hostile fleet blocks that strait, the Chinese economy doesn't just slow down, it stops. China knows this. That is why they are spending hundreds of billions on the Belt and Road Initiative, trying to build a back door through the mountains of Pakistan and Myanmar. It's not just an investment, it's a desperate attempt to escape a geographic prison.
Now look at Russia. Russia's tragedy is the Great European Plain. Imagine a flat, wide-open highway that runs from the heart of France straight to the gates of Moscow. Over the last 2 centuries, European armies have used that highway twice to march almost unopposed into Russian territory. For Russia, geography isn't a shield, it's a constant threat. That is why they are obsessed with buffer zones.
And then there's the water. Russia is the largest country on Earth, yet it is virtually landlocked. Its northern ports are frozen for half the year. Its access to the Atlantic is choked by the Baltic Sea. Its access to the Mediterranean is controlled by Turkey at the Bosphorus. Every Russian military intervention, from Syria to Ukraine, can be traced back to one desperate search: the search for a warm water port that someone else doesn't own the keys to. While America was born with all the keys, its rivals are still banging on the gates. Many people ask, why is Africa, a continent overflowing with gold, diamonds, and cobalt,
still struggling to rule the world? The answer isn't just history or politics. The answer is hidden in 16 kilometers of hell. Look at the Congo River. On paper, it should be the economic spine of an entire continent. It's deep, it's massive, and it flows through some of the richest land on Earth. In America, a river like this would be a highway for trillions of dollars in trade. But the Congo has a fatal flaw. At the very end of its journey, just before it reaches the Atlantic Ocean, the river drops hundreds of feet through a series of violent rapids and waterfalls. This is a geographic death sentence. It means that you cannot sail a ship from the ocean into the heart of Africa. Everything has to be unloaded, carried past the falls, and reloaded. This single barrier makes trade so expensive that it effectively disconnects the interior of the continent from the global economy.
And it gets worse. Look at the coastline of Africa compared to North America. Africa's coast is remarkably smooth. It lacks the deep bays and natural harbors that we saw in New York or Norfolk. Where the American coast invites the world in, the African coast pushes the world away. Without natural protection, any port built there is constantly battered by the open ocean and choked by shifting sands.
While America was given free highways and perfect harbors, Africa was given a fortress with no doors. This is why resources aren't enough. You can have all the gold in the world, but if your geography refuses to let you move it, you are playing a game you were never meant to win. Now contrast that with the American shield. To understand why America is truly untouchable, we first have to look at the old masters of safety. For centuries, Great Britain was the gold standard of security. Its island status gave it a 10 out of 10 on the survival scale. But in the 20th century, the shield cracked. When Nazi bombers were able to cross the English Channel in just 30 minutes, the British advantage vanished. Capital and talent realized that a 30-mile stretch of water wasn't enough to stop modern chaos. They looked west, toward a place where the moats weren't measured in miles, but in thousands of miles.
The United States is protected by the two greatest barriers on Earth, the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. While European and Asian powers spent the last 100 years worrying about neighbors moving their borders by a few inches, America sat behind 3,000 miles of deep blue armor. This geographic distance means that any enemy wishing to strike the American mainland has to solve the most difficult logistical puzzle in military history. You cannot just march an army into Washington. You have to transport millions of tons of equipment across an entire ocean while facing the world's most powerful navy. It is an impossible task. Geography hasn't just protected America, it has isolated it from the world's most violent conflicts.
But what about its immediate borders? Look at the neighbors. To the north, Canada, a peaceful ally with a small population. To the south, Mexico, separated by massive deserts and rugged terrain that make any large-scale conventional invasion a nightmare. Most nations live in constant fear of their neighbors. Poland, Germany, Vietnam, India, they all have to maintain massive land armies just to protect their front porch. America doesn't. It is an island on the scale of a continent. Because its neighbors aren't a threat and the oceans are impenetrable, the United States has been able to focus its energy inward, building the most stable industrial base in human history.
This total security is why your investments, your factories, and your children are safer in America than anywhere else on the planet. The world trusts the US dollar as a reserve currency, not just because of the government, but because of the geography behind it.
Investors know that no matter what war breaks out in Europe or the Middle East, the factories in the American Midwest will keep running. The infrastructure of the United States hasn't seen large-scale destruction on its own soil in over 150 years. While the rest of the world rebuilds after every crisis, America just keeps growing. Geography made the dollar the global king long before any politician signed a treaty.
If we were to rate every nation on a scale of 1 to 10, how many would truly earn a perfect score? To find the answer, we look at 3 non-negotiable criteria: the ability to feed your own people, the total protection from foreign invasion, and the natural capacity for global trade. Politics, economics, and culture are just the structures we build on top. But these 3 pillars, they grow directly from the land itself. While most nations struggle to master even one of these, the United States is the only power in history to sit on a perfect 10 across the board. Everything you see, the wealth, the military, the influence, is simply the inevitable result of this geographical foundation.
So, when you hear the inevitable collapse of the United States, remember this. They've been saying the exact same thing since the 1930s. For nearly 100 years, the headlines have predicted the end, and yet, a century later, the giant is still standing. To bet against America is to bet against the very land it occupies. It is an argument that ignores the fundamental principles that have governed human civilization since the days of ancient Egypt. Wealth and power are not distributed by luck or by effort alone. They are distributed by the earth.
As long as the earth beneath a nation's feet remains the same, its place in the world is unlikely to shift. Governments will change, leaders will come and go, but the mountains do not move. The Mississippi continues to flow, and the 2 great oceans remain as vast and protective as ever. Geography is destiny, and for now, the map of the world has already chosen its winner. The real question for the future isn't whether America will fall. It's whether any other nation can ever hope to escape the prison of its own borders. Because until the land changes, the rules of the game remain exactly the same.